Please provide information regarding your knowledge of municipal power.
Well, I can say over the last 18 months, I have learned way more about kilowatt hours and the Michigan Public Power Agency and MISO and CONE and all of these fun acronyms that I did not anticipate learning, but I did. My knowledge of municipal power, or power in general, comes from a lot of my family members are union workers. So over about a decade span of my life, I traveled around the state watching power plants be built and worked on. And I asked a lot of questions. And at that time, I wasn't an environmental planner, so I didn't really know what was happening. But if you understand coal, you understand that obviously there's contaminants that go into the air. And for a while there, these municipal power and Consumers Energy and other companies were building big bag houses. And what those bag houses did was catch all the pollution that should be going into the air and collect it in a bag. And I said, okay, that's great. So we're not polluting the air. Well, what do we do with that waste then? Oh, we just put it on the ground next to the power plant. So I had a lot of questions about why we do what we do, because industrial uses have environmental contaminants. All of them have pluses and minuses that we need to work on and we need to analyze. Even solar, even wind. So my experience started off as a curious spectator, and then in being here in Grand Haven, I had to start figuring out, well, who manages a municipally owned power agency? Well, who regulates them? Who makes those rules? So my experience comes mostly from working with my community and the Board of Local Power and asking a lot of questions about how these things work.
Thank you. Next is Andy. Will you put that real close to your mouth, Andy?
Oh, yes, I'll try. Back to the past 7 years, being tutored by Dave Walters and others on the BLP staff, who have been extremely accommodating to somebody that's dumb as a doorpost about power and why does this work that way. I've been following the 28 cities that are members of the Michigan Municipal Power Association, and of them, there's only one, Lansing, that currently has a project in process to build a peaking plant. And by design, it will be below their baseload demand. So they're going to stay on the grid, but they're going to do a little bit of peaking. Now back to the grid, following the statewide energy plan of the 70 to 90 odd power plants in the state, 10 plus of them will be closing in the next 5 years. Consumers Power is accelerating the move away from coal, including accelerating the closure of Campbell, just south of us, even though they've just invested millions in renovating the plant. Also, our biggest source on the west coast of Michigan, Palisades, will close in the next 3 years. So all of a sudden our grid is going to get a lot smaller. If you look at other municipal power entities around the country, in California, especially with their push for renewables, cities like Oxnard, California, are putting together a Tesla battery pack based power plant. So the power plant batteries are about the size of a trailer on a tractor trailer, and they're going to put 80 of them on vacant land.
Thank you. Dale?
Well, maybe this will be just plain random thoughts, but the MISO with our grid situation, I've been told that thing is, they're a government entity that turns on and off power plants as needed and what we use, okay? And so I always thought that the Ludington plant, because that came on when I was quite young, but it came on and I assumed that all the power came from large plants over on the other side of the state in the evening, because, you know, we don't use our power then, right? Not true. Because of MISO and the technology that they have to know when we need power and don't need power, that plant will start pumping water out of Lake Michigan at any time of day. And then they will be asked to release it at any time of day. It is the largest battery that we've got in the area, and it's about 80% efficient, which is higher than any number that I've heard for any other battery. So it's a fantastic facility. The other thing is that our little 2.5 megawatts that we're talking about, when you look at Port Sheldon at 15,000, almost 16,000, which I understand is talked about going off the grid. Ludington plant is even bigger. Those numbers don't compute on the same scale. And so for us to think that we're going to get 12.5 megawatts of power and that's going to feed the city of Grand Haven, it's not. We need over 35,000 megawatts. I think that's a factor of 3. So we might have a little peaker plant here that's running on natural gas, but it's not efficient. It's small pieces of equipment. They make other natural gas plants that are, they call them a combined use, and they get much more efficiency.
Thank you. Michael?
So as far as my knowledge of electrical, you know, I started, got my first house out of college and paid my first electric bill. I was shocked at how usage and what it really cost to when you got a bill and you had to pay it. But as I grew up and got into college, you know, my career led me down a path of energy conservation within manufacturing. You know, looking for energy treasure hunts, finding ways to conserve energy, lower bills. You know, the next kind of phase of my career. Currently, you know, working at my current employer here in Grand Haven, they're a large consumer of GHLB, Grand Haven Board of Light and Power. I believe the largest consumer. We've had lots of negotiations and talks with the BLP. I started to get involved by attending the meetings early on when the Sims plant was being talked about shutting down and what our options were. Found it fascinating on the items that they were, what was on the table. Currently, I'm working on, I've worked on shopping for electricity in Ohio and Alabama and finding lower rates in areas where you can shop. Currently looking at purchasing our own alternative energy source on site at some of our locations and doing the cost-benefit analysis. And for the future, you know, I'm really looking forward to getting to learn more about municipal power and how it works. I mean, I just feel like I've scratched the surface with what I need to know.
Thank you.
Well, what I learned about how municipal energy works, or municipal power works, is by talking to a lot of people that work at the Board of Light and Power, manager, Eric Booth, and Rob Shelley. They give, the distribution manager. I think they give. I've spent a lot of time talking to them, listening to them. I've talked to retired BLP workers. I've talked to power workers in surrounding communities, just to get their perspective on how all this works. I personally am not an expert in electrical power, municipal power distribution, but I know people that are. I know where, if I have a question, I know where to get an answer. So with that in mind, I look at, we're doing a lot of surveys and asking people questions of what they think. The problem with that is there's an awful lot more involved in running a power plant, and providing electricity, And being a member of the grid, being a member of MISO, being a member of NITS, being a member of any acronym you can think of. You know, as a layperson, to have, everybody can have ideas. That doesn't mean your ideas work in a system that is established, that has its rules and regulations, that has its laws, that has to work within that system. We can talk about future energy production means, but are they available today? It's today that we are trying to make sure that we have energy for our factories and for our homes, for emergency situations. So we have to deal with what is, not what's going to be 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, or battery systems that may or may not work, or, you know, if you look around the country, who's having troubles? New York just turned off one of their nuclear plants, and what's the next thing they got? Brownouts. Look at Texas, look at California. You need reliable energy.
Thank you.